Oh, good morning. How's that for Susie and we have our you know what together over here today.
We do.
Uh
And this is
yeah.
gonna be just interesting. So you should watch. It's like a dumpster fire about to start.
It's a dumpster fire, but it's a dumpster fire where you're gonna find some good shit in the dumpster because you're
That's
probably
right
gonna learn
before it
something.
burns.
And also realize that you don't have to take yourself that seriously to do good work out there in the world.
I agree with you. This is called vulnerability, and it's in its rawest form today.
Well, and actually, good setup you didn't even think about
No, I
because
didn't.
you posted something earlier this week that made me think I know what we need to talk about.
Awesome.
And vulnerability is square in it. So you posted a video talking about how you actually did get fired from like a leadership or an executive job, and it got me thinking about many ways. If for many reasons, I have also lost a very high level job, and it really does kind of shake you to your core in knowing kind of the value that you have, and that is very relevant to just what's happening in the labor market
Yeah.
right now. And so, I'd love your thoughts on that.
Yeah, and it's really interesting because when I think back right after that happened, like the the tornado I was in and how long it took for me to get out of it.
Yeah.
I remember the day after being in a hotel room because I had to fly to LA to get fired. I knew I was going to get fired,
Oh,
and I had to fly. So for almost a week and a half, I knew, but I was in this like shunned place where nobody was talking to me or anything. So, like the
and then you
pressure
have to get on a
and the
plane, and
stress.
then you knowing your fate, and then you have to get back on the plane
Yes,
knowing
to
the
go
fate.
back. And I started calling people because I just wanted, I don't know what I wanted, like validation or, and it was almost like I could see it in other people, like, don't call me, like, just get your shit together. Oh,
Oh
sorry.
no, you can totally say that because
Okay.
I'm sitting over here thinking, all of this is very much a giant mind bleep, right?
Yeah.
And one of the things that I've always told, anybody when they get laid off, I think it's especially true for leaders and executives is like you're not your biggest mistake. You're not
Yeah.
defined by failure, right? Failure is an event, not a definition. And ultimately to me, that how the company sees you and whether they want you or not, to me doesn't
Yeah.
define the worth you have to someone else. However, it is heavily emotional when you're in it.
Yeah. Completely. And you just brought up such a good point. You need to find people to help you through it because
Yeah.
it is emotional. It is hard. It's really difficult to get your way back in the world. And I have two friends right now that were both completely blindsided, completely. They were senior executives, both in big corporations, very high up. And one happened to be a man, one was a woman, very close friends of mine. And so I watched their transition out, very different. Like she was trying to figure out, like, I got to figure out what I'm doing next. I need to write the thing. I need to do this. I need to do all this
Mm.
prep work. And I swear he had a consulting job the day it happened. And I think that at getting, and I've also talked to people before when I got talked to a guy, and then I'll stop and let you go. I talked to a senior executive that was basically demoted, not
Mm.
because of him, but because of the organization. They couldn't have another VP. So he was a VP and then he reported to a VP. So it was one of those weird kind of things. And he had to talk to me because he was emotionally charged. And he was able to, in the conversation, just like click it in. Because I told him, take advantage of the situation and figure out what you need to do to be the best steward in that moment, because there's going to
Yeah.
be an opportunity for you to get out of this. And he like clicked out of the emotion, was like, you're right.
Yeah. Well, and this is to me like when we think about leadership conversations no one prepared you for, no
Yeah.
one prepares you to be laid off or fired when you are in a leadership position. And man, can it feel like a rug being pulled out from under you? Even if you have to get on a plane 7 days from now and know what's coming, there is still a real hard smack to the face. And this is really relevant
Mm-hmm.
to the current state of things. And in my opinion, we do not talk enough about the emotional and mental toll that a layoff or that job searching or just even that career development
Mm-hmm.
entails, especially in a really competitive market. And the last story, Susie, I think is really relevant, and something I want to make a point to everybody out there is that, as leaders, we really know what's happening on both sides,
Mhm.
in front of the curtain and behind the curtain. However, when the stuff behind the curtain, it happens to us out front, it feels really personal.
Yeah.
And to some extent, it is. It's our livelihood, it's our confidence, it's all of these things. But in many cases, it is actually a business decision. Like you just said, it was the restructure kind of thing. And it didn't necessarily happen to you. It's just you were part of something that happened. And there's a perspective shift that is important there in navigating these things.
Yeah. It's so true, and it's hard to get your bearings. It really is. It takes some time, and whatever you can do to, um, get your bearings is key, but thinking about it beforehand, and understanding that it could happen, I don't know, what do you think? I mean, what are some things that people can do? I think what comes to mind for me, I know another person that was recently surprising was surprised to know she was laid off. And she said, "Wow, I always knew I needed to network outside of my
Mhm.
company. And I wish I would have, not because of the opportunities, but because I'm learning so much from so many awesome people that I didn't have access to before because I didn't think it was important."
Oh, okay. So, long and short of it is networking is now job searching. And it just anecdotally, I'm a big proponent of, just human connection. Replace the word networking with human connection. It is more important now than ever. And it is, in a way, your safety net with
Yeah,
when these things happen, because it is the easiest, fastest way to activate uh, uh, people, and even just a job search to bring up opportunities. So if you are networking, if you are keeping up with human connections, don't ever stop. If you go through the heavy lift of starting, usually in conjunction with the job search when you need it, don't ever stop, because then you won't need it. And then, in a way, you feel like you've got an asset in your back pocket that
yeah.
maybe, just even if it's 1%,
Mhm.
lessens the blow. And I also think, and this is a tricky thing to say and even a trickier thing to do. I think we all have to know that we are replaceable. I'm sorry. Even a
Yeah,
CEO, even a founder is replaceable, sometimes should be replaced.
yeah,
However, we have to approach our work knowing that fact, while also not letting it derail kind of an important work. And so, it's not like you can just operate in fear every day of like, oh, I can't lose my job. I can't lose my job. I can't lose my job, because, oh my gosh, that's an exhausting way to live. But I think there's things that we can do behind the scenes, like continuing to network, like always making sure your documents are prepared, so that at least you have the ability. You're not starting from zero if the rug does get pulled out from under you.
yeah, being really flat-footed and not realizing. And I think that another thing that's unsettling that people don't talk about is, like, in a negotiation, as for an
Mm.
example, everybody thinks that there is something that is attainable. And in a negotiation, it doesn't mean if you ask for more, you're getting the thing that they have. Sometimes they have to shift on their side to give you what you want. So
Yeah.
it's never solid. It's not like you're in a math equation. It's really an art form. And it's the same when this happens. And I call it a negotiation hangover. When you don't know what you want, when you go in, you're gonna be have this shadow of, what if I asked for more? What if I did this? What if I did this? But the best approach is to really be clear about what's important to you. The same
Mhm.
is true when you're being let go, is you want more answers and there's nobody to ask. And sometimes it's
Yeah.
not.
And even if there is, they're not gonna answer. You're not
No,
gonna
they're
get
not
answers.
gonna
You're not
answer.
gonna have the closure you want in that
Yeah,
situation, just like how you feel with the negotiation hangover. Uh-huh.
yes. And it's not what you think it is necessarily, because you're trying so hard to go, if I would have done this, if I would have done that, or, like, and it's not worth the time. It's just futile to do that.
Yeah. You can should all over yourself in those situations. And I'll
Yeah.
make a point, and I'm gonna give a shout out to my friend Steve Jaffe. He wrote a book that is called, I'm pretty sure it's Life After Layoff. It might be
Oh,
wrong. However, I will tag it in here when we're done.
okay. Awesome.
And one of his, he was not so much rug pulled out from under you, but victim of like several repeated layoffs because he's simply in marketing. And for a while, that was always the one on the chopping block. And so he wrote a book that is very much about how to process it emotionally and mentally. And one of the things that I think is really important here is you need to give yourself a beat, right? Because it is good to be prepared. It is good to have a network and that asset in your
Yeah.
back pocket. It is good to have your resume at least updated so you're not finding somebody to update it, then taking two months to get it all done before you can start. However, the answer when the rug is pulled out from under you is typically not go start scouring the world and throwing stuff at the wall. You need to grieve it a little bit because there is some of that like confusion, lack of closure, things you won't understand, things that you want reasons for. And also that meaning is gone. And so there actually is a little bit of a grieving process because you're angry at first and then you want to fight and all of these things that are very typical grieving process. Give yourself, even if it's a week, a little space to breathe, because a lot of times this life can happen for you if you let it. And a lot of times, I would say most people will say a layoff or a firing or an unexpected separation from their job is a blessing. But
Yeah.
you've got to give yourself space to process that.
It is not a blessing day one. It takes
No,
a while to understand.
it usually takes the next thing so that you have hindsight. Let's just be real about the timing of which you will realize that it is a blessing. However, it's also not your death.
Yeah. It's not like the best thing to say to somebody day one when they, like if somebody just got laid off and you go, just, it's a blessing. That's not going to be the right time to do that. Just FYI.
Yeah, coaches out there, maybe save that to session 3. So I want to flip the script a minute because I
Yep.
think this is, we're going to see more of this. Just
Yeah.
especially in larger companies, we're seeing rolling layoffs that are just more of a when than an if. And this constant, like, I don't even know if you want to call it constant restructuring, but constant reprioritization. And sometimes we, at all levels of an org, are going to be the collateral damage. It, again, not personal, business decisions. Unfortunately, in that moment, you are a number on a spreadsheet.
Yeah.
And if that might disturb you more, but actually it should be more consoling than anything. But what I think we should be thinking about is, in the hiring world, there has been a long time judgment of like gaps and departures from roles. And I feel like this conversation from a leadership perspective also has to flip to the other side of, as leaders, when you're hiring, thinking about the fact that these things do happen and it doesn't actually mean the person that you are potentially hiring is worth less, or that the 6-month gap means they are lazy, right?
Yeah. Totally. And I think that's a really hard, you have to be really intentional about that because we have been told for so many years that it's so important to not have gaps in your resume and to make sure that there's continuity. But when
Yeah.
you're
And that
hiring,
you're more hireable if you're currently working.
yes. And when you're hiring somebody, you are really nervous about hiring the right person. And so any red flag feels like a red flag.
Yeah.
And so it is really important to have some grace around that, especially in this time, to understand that there is an alternate reason and doesn't mean it's a reflection on that person's ability to lead.
Exactly. And you as a leader not working for a period of time is also not a reflection, because in all honesty, whether the separation was your decision, someone else's decision, expected or not, it is very difficult to find another, especially once you get into senior leadership and executive leadership. It is very hard to conduct a job search campaign with the very
Yeah.
limited bandwidth you have in those high demand jobs. And if you want to have any sort of life, now we're adding this third priority onto the list. It can be very difficult to job search in those situations. And it's becoming more common to step away from a job so that you can focus on finding your next leadership position. And we know that can take a while. And so I also think there's like a normalization that needs to come here across the board, and leaders have the ability to start it.
Yeah, and as you were talking, I was thinking, I think it might be a good thing to really have a story around that. So when you are interviewing, even taking research, because I bet to your point, I bet there is specific research about how many months it takes for different levels to find the
Yeah.
right fit. And that's a good thing to remind yourself of. And also not a bad thing to frame in when you're interviewing, just to remind that person to get that objectivity back.
Absolutely. And just full stop, leadership conversations no one prepares you for. If you're a C-suite, it's going to take you a year to find a new role right now. And that is not trying to scare you. That is setting realistic expectations, especially if you're currently C-suite and realize you want to, have a succession plan in place and then, want a job search. You may not have a year to step aside
Yeah.
and navigate that alone. Or without another role. So like you need to kind of figure out how can I do a little right now to kind of get my momentum going. And so yeah, it's the further up the ladder you go, the longer it takes. So I'm seeing basically year for executives, somewhere between 6 to 8, close to 9 months for senior leadership VPs. And then it kind of trickles down, but the floor is like 6 months, or you should operate under that assumption.
Yeah.
And so this is all part of your career development as a leader. And that's something
Yeah.
that you need to make sure you're focusing on.
Yeah. And how you manage yourself through that.
Yeah.
And you said something earlier about, well, the dead space, when you're in it and there is nothing, like you just got to know, or you got an email back that's just a general email, which,
Oh, I
frustrating
was
to me.
literally just thinking, can we talk about how to do this as a leader, as a
Oh,
leader?
yes. Let's go
Because
there and
it's
then I'll go
that.
into, yes.
Oh, no, you keep going and then we'll go sound off on that one.
Okay. Yes. The general, but when you get something like that and you don't hear of anything for a few days, it feels like a black hole. And
Yeah.
just like in negotiation, when you don't have options, that drives a scarcity mindset. So I
Yes.
think part of the management of how you get yourself through those months is understanding that, because the
Yep.
moment you find another place even to apply and you get a first interview, feels like, okay, I have some momentum. I feel
Yep.
like somebody wants me. It shifts, and it can shift like that.
Yeah.
So I think that management of how I'm going to get through this is something that, okay, it can be something that you can learn a lot about yourself,
Mhm.
but it's something you have to do so that you don't, crawl under a rock and
I was just thinking so you don't crawl into a hole,
yeah.
and beat yourself up for months and months and months, because that's also not productive. And I think the no, like you said, the talk track is
Mhm.
important. But here's the thing. It has to be a talk track both to fill the hole and tell somebody what you've been doing for the last 4 or 5 months since you left your last role, but it's gotta be a talk track that you believe in your head, right? It needs to
Yeah.
be true, and it is true. There is intentionality there. There's things that you can do to be productive during those periods of time, and frankly, most people who get laid off need a freaking break. So,
Yeah.
take it.
Yeah.
Um, but now let's talk to corporate leaders for a second. Please stop doing mass layoffs via email, full stop.
Oh my gosh. Let's just call a spade a spade. There was one a month ago that
Yep.
was 30,000 people
Oh,
that they sent.
I'll put some companies on alert.
Yeah,
It's asinine. Cloudflare did it, 20% of their workforce, 1,100 people via a freaking email. You can't even do 10 5-minute Zooms with 100 people in them each.
right. Totally.
You can't even give those people an hour of your
Yeah,
time.
yeah. It's crazy. It's crazy just to even think about the years that those people gave you.
Yeah.
And I know I wonder if it comes from just being uncomfortable and they rationalize to themselves, you know what?
Yep.
It's just better if we just do this over email so it's consistent. I can almost hear the talk track. It's just
Oh, yeah.
consistent, the same message, nobody, and we'll just do
We
it.
don't have to deal with like pushback, or we don't have
Yeah,
to answer questions. Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because in some ways we can justify it from behind the curtain.
Yeah.
However, just like we're trying to get people on the front side of the curtain to understand it's not personal, we
Yeah.
need corporate leaders to understand that on some level it is. And while the decision on which line items to riff is not personal, it is business, there are still humans on the other end of the decision, and there is a human way in which to deal with this, to be respectful of that fact. And that's what gets me a little fired up, as you can see.
Totally. And it made me think too, it's only going to get worse because when you think about applying for jobs and getting fired on both sides, it's very depersonalized. You know, you
Oh,
don't you put your resume out there, or you get a warm introduction to somebody, and then you don't know what happens on the other side. And then you might get an email back that's a form letter email that you don't even get feedback for. Like, people don't even understand what they don't have or why they weren't selected, because companies can't be honest about it because of legal ramifications,
yep.
obviously. But as we get further and further in leveraging AI to do this, I think it's going to get worse. And I think you're right. Like, as leaders, we need to be thinking about the human on the other side. To some extent, you need to make sure that you're able to offer that, because it's really hard.
And think about yourself. If you are on the
Yeah.
receiving end of the information, would you rather have the anxiety of a week knowing you're going to fly 2 hours to be fired? Or would you rather be slapped in the face with 3 lines in an email that has absolute no personalized context? I
Yeah.
would actually rather have A. And it's
Yeah.
a little bit of golden rule here, right?
Yeah.
Do unto others as you would want done
Physically.
unto you. And that's completely forgotten. And I think I agree with you that the idea of it getting worse in my mind is like the gap is going to get larger, because that there is like a complete sever in the feedback loop, whether it's why did I, and people want context, right?
Yeah.
People do want to understand for their own growth and for their own
Mhm.
closure and resolution, especially younger people.
Mhm.
Younger people really want input both ways so that they have that context. And it can go a long way to just say, hey, we actually hired somebody else because they had more experience in X. That is in no way, shape, or form going to open you up to a liability, even though we have gotten into this overly litigious perspective on interview feedback. And the same goes for sitting down and just saying to somebody, hey, we had to make a tough business decision,
Yep.
and unfortunately, we're eliminating your position, and giving them at least 5 seconds to be like, okay, well, why? Okay, here's
Yeah.
the reason. Okay, I can live with that instead of wondering all the time. And it doesn't take that much effort on the human corporate leader side to do that. Thoughtfulness will get you a lot further in the long run, get you a better reputation. Because the last thing you all want out there, leaders who have hit send, is to be caught behind the 8 ball in 2 or 3 years when the pendulum swings back to an employee market and you can't retain and get top talent because people know you suck.
Yeah. It's so true. There's so many different things in that. And even having that comment, or even being able to have the space to say, what questions can I answer? Even if you can't, giving them something that doesn't feel like there's just a plastic person in front of them that only
Yeah.
speaks exactly from the script.
I wish I had my human shirt on today because I have an entire drawer of them. I had them made because this is one of many avenues in the professional world where humans still matter. And I think we've forgotten that. And if there is one leadership conversation no one prepared you for, we've talked about that here before. Leadership is a people activity, which means the hard decisions you make as leaders are too.
Yeah. You made me think too that there's such a great piece of content for us to do. Would you rather? Different leadership scenarios, because it illustrates that sometimes there's not the best decision, but you have to weigh what's right. And that's what you're getting at here is, yes, you may be told by senior management to follow this exact thing, but there are ways that you can make it connected
Mhm.
or somehow make that person be seen, even for a moment, by making the right decision on how to connect with them.
I feel like, first of all, would you rather coming at you next month on Susie and Angie Sound Off. So if you have a would you rather scenario, drop it to us in a message because we will sound off about it. But ultimately, in my opinion, I think that's a really good kind of umbrella for the fact that leadership isn't easy because most of the time you're going to be put in a would you rather situation where two things could be true.
Yeah,
There isn't one of two necessary evils you must carry out, and there's no easy decision even if it is the best decision based on the information at the time. And those
yeah,
are the types of conversations that I think you and I really want to help people, even if we can't prepare them for, at least help them understand that to expect it,
yeah.
and also to take the the human approach anytime they're faced with that crossroads.
Yeah, and it made me think, just assume you're gonna get let go. Just
There you go.
assume that's gonna happen, because
Yeah.
when you allow yourself to be curious about that, you will be more ready than if you assume you're not.
And you never know what might plop into your lap,
Yeah,
even instead, right?
yeah,
Always being open does not mean you're always ready to leave.
yeah,
But it does mean that if opportunity knocks, you're primed to at least go in the room and check it out.
yeah. I always tell people, k keep track of the companies you'd like to work for, just
Yep.
out of curiosity, and get to know people there. Because when you meet people and they're like, "Oh my gosh, awesome experience, love the culture," all that, that's just more insight, more intel that you have that doesn't feel like, scarcity, like, I don't know where to look.
Yeah. And that goes back to what we talked about at the beginning, of having that asset of active human
Yeah,
connections in your repertoire, because
yeah,
then you don't have to ramp that up from zero. And you've theoretically filled it with people at companies you've already kind of pre-vetted, and then
yep,
you have a clear starting point if you feel ready,
yeah,
whether you know you're ready to depart a job, whether you get laid off or fired
yep,
unexpectedly, or whether just a passive opportunity comes your way. You're not blind to all of it.
yeah. I totally agree. It's that unknown is really the it's Oz behind the curtain. Do not look behind the curtain, but you wanna know more about what is. And
And as soon
somebody
as somebody says don't look behind the curtain, what's the first thing you
Yeah,
want to do? You want to see behind the
exactly.
curtain. Yeah.
Yeah. And one other thing that I wanna make sure we say too is also your emotions can as we've said, get in your way. So don't just be a horrible person on the way out if you are staying there. Like, what is the purpose to be difficult, it might in the moment feel good to you,
Yeah.
but you never know where you're gonna end up in the future. And
Yeah.
so
Don't
y y
burn the
yes,
bridge.
you will want to just, gosh, have people say, "Man, she really handled that well."
Yeah. What is that? It's a cliche. I can't remember the actual saying, but it's the thing about the high road, whatever.
Oh, yeah, take
It will always,
yeah,
taking the high road will always work out better for you because you never know what good individual from a company that you want to slash might go work at a target
yeah,
company. And now
yeah,
you burned a bridge you didn't even know you were trying to walk over. Right.
yeah,
And so take the high road because, I talk to people who are like, oh man, I can't wait for this exit interview. I'm going to just tell them what I think. And I'm like,
yeah.
you can be honest, be tactful, but you also have to
Mhm.
remember how much, like, I hate thinking this way, but also
Yeah,
how much difference is it going to make? And, ultimately you want to be honest to the point that you feel good about it, but don't go slam people. That's burning a bridge that you don't know if
yeah,
you're going to want to walk over in the future. And so in a way, this comes back to the very point of be a thoughtful human all the way around
yeah,
365.
yes, totally agree with you.
What a novel concept in the year of our Lord 2026, Susie.
And it's gonna be even, like, a year from now, it's gonna be a bigger challenge too. So, we all need your T-shirts about
We got
being human, because I think we're
stay tuned.
losing we're becoming best friends with Claude,
Yep.
this new best friend, and boy, they make you f Claude makes you feel good, but That is not
And
the
Claude's
right
even the one that's
trick.
less sycophantic than OpenAI, but ultimately we have to be cautious of being stuck in those loops of constant positive reinforcement.
Yeah.
Step out, connect with a human, get a little bit of reality, affirmation of some of the stuff it says,
Yeah.
but also the dose reality. And I want maybe the following is my optimistic view of things, but I think we're in a really interesting crossroads and time of change right now. And what's going to come of it is actually the gravitation back towards authentic, genuine, more traditional forms of human communication, because I think we were already disconnected with the technology revolution, and AI came in and just really exacerbated it. And once everybody realizes, holy cow, I can't stay in this sycophantic loop anymore, we are going to remember that humans still matter. And hopefully that does come into play 360, 365.
I love it. I love it. I feel the same way. I'm pretty optimistic about it. And I think that's going to be our differentiator
Yeah.
as people, is to take the human path.
It's just that easy.
Mhm.
Leadership conversations no one prepared you for. Take the human path.
Take the human path. This is
Susie and I will be back next month for a Would You Rather. That sounds like a fun. Oh, I can't wait to come up with some of those
It'll be
scenarios and put
fun
you on the
too.
spot.
Yes. And don't just have would you rather about this topic. I'm talking would you rather in any leadership situation you've been in that had no easy out.
Yeah, would you rather bungee jump or skydive?
Yeah.
Anything's on the table around here. So if you're listening out there and you have a scenario you want us to throw out here in real time, drop a note and we will see you next month for more leadership conversations no one prepared you for.
Awesome. Thanks, Ange.
Always a fun time, Susie.
See you.